Evil sometimes dwells in its seldom. It is human who seeks for its activities wherever it lies. The case of the Wilson family testified to this. Bonded by blood, separated by attributes is the best way to describe the Wilson family. Summer vacation was what they'd fantasized about, having a good time, fun, privacy, and an escape from the noise of the ever-bubbling city. The Wilsons got more than they had bargained for in this horrific episode. Let's ride on this. It was weeks before the 2019 summer, and the residents of Princeburg couldn't keep their excitement. Princeburg was a reserved environment for the wealthy and upper class. Jill was in the playground of Princeburg with her friends, and everyone in the group was sharing the location for their proposed summer vacation. Jill's friends all had their proposed summer vacation somewhere in Southern America, Africa, and Asia, except for her. She was to spend her summer vacation in their heritage mansion on the Vainsgate Island, 6 hours drive from Princeburg. That was what her family had agreed on, among the two other places on the bucket list for the summer vacation 2019. Mr. Henry Wilson, 49 years old, is a workaholic who barely has time with the family. He was a man who loved the golf club where he met with his friends and potential business partners. He had met his wife, Mary Wilson, at the same golf club, and he was fond of calling the golf club a sacred land of blessings. Mrs. Mary Wilson, 45 years old, the mother of 3, and yet still keeping a sultry and firm body like a lady in her early 20s. She was obsessed with cooking in the kitchen. She spent quality time therein, cooking dishes and doing whatever her hands could get busy on in the kitchen. Knitting is one of her favorite things to do if she is not in the kitchen. She always ensures her family members are comfortable. Zion, the first child of the Wilsons' 18-year-old, a sluggish but bookworm persona. Robert, the second child of the Wilsons, 15 years old, is an inquisitive, charismatic, and brave persona. Jill, the third and last child of the Wilsons, 12 years old, is smart, over-pampered, wants everything, loves being the center of attention and attraction, with a false pride best describes her persona. Jill was anxious about her vacation at Vainsgate Island. It was going to be her first time at the historic family mansion. Henry had sent the cleaning service to take care of the mansion that had been unused for some years day before their trip to the island, and he had ensured they stocked it with the right food based on Mary's order. On June 20th, 2019, the night before the trip, Jill couldn't get enough sleep as she kept tossing around the bed and hoping it was daybreak, and they made it to the island within a twinkle of an eye. Jill possesses strong imaginative prowess, and she is a daydreamer. At the family breakfast, Mary had instructed her kids to ensure not to forget anything and to get prepared for the trip ahead. Robert, who had been to the island frequently, was more familiar with the historic mansion of the family. He knew more about the mansion than any member of the family because of the closeness with his late grandfather and their special time together at the mansion on the island. Zion was ready for the trip with the little belongings to take for the 12 days vacation. Mary, who was displeased with what she had seen on site and complained about getting more stuff, but Henry intervened, telling her to let him be. At the space parked at the garage to convey the Wilsons family to the island, Henry screamed with his little fainting voice, "Let's get going, guys! It's going to be a long trip." "Zion and I are here, Dad," Jill had said. "Let's leave Mom and Robert at home and proceed with the trip." Henry gave his daughter a warm smile and nodded a sign of disapproval, followed by a response saying, "Don't do that, darling, unless you don't want your mom's delicious meals during this vacation." Robert gets onto the bus while Mary, with some packs of cookies in her hand for the road trip, was finding it difficult to get into the space bus because of her hands being full. Zion stepped out to his sister and she hopped onto the car, slamming the door, making her presence felt inside the bus. "Are we ready for this?" Henry asked with his 2 hands on the steering wheel. Yes, the rest of the family murmured their approval, while Mary gave a soft smile to her hubby. Jill couldn't stop staring at her wristwatch. She had held it so tight in her palms. It was 10:25 a.m. when they left their home for Vainsgate Island, which was a 6 hours drive from Princeburg. Some minutes after driving out of Princeburg, Zion, who was interested in the novel he was reading, Jill was taking a slow bite of the cookies in her hands while she was looking through the window and admiring the beauty of nature at sight. Robert was chatting with his girlfriend on the gram, while Mary sat silently next to her hubby with the full concentration on the road ahead. Each time Henry looked at the rear mirror, he seemed to notice someone running after the bus that was at a full speed, but he wasn't sure and he believed it was his illusion and didn't want to put the family members in a panic mood. With the road sign of "Welcome to Vainsgate Island" in sight after 4 hours drive, Henry announced to the family he would make a quick stop at the nearest gas station to take a few minutes rest and refill the gas for the bus. Robert replied almost immediately, like he was waiting for the announcement. "My legs are vibrating," he said, and Jill accused him of always having something to complain about. Robert, trying to defend himself, said, "Not again," but Mary cut the duo argument short by telling them no more words from you both, which made them go mute immediately. Making it to the gas station, which had no person on site and attested to the fact that the Vainsgate is a lonesome island, Mary walked to the restroom to relieve her bladder from the urine she had held onto. While she was in the restroom, she noticed the footsteps of someone walking in, and she greeted them with a warm hello. No one responded, but she didn't take it personally. She was about to step out when she noticed someone sitting in the restroom's corner reading a newspaper while revealing her face. But she couldn't believe what she had just seen. A face with no form of eyes and was reading the daily newspaper. With the major event of yesterday making it to the front page, she ran out of the restroom and told her hubby, "We should leave now." But he wasn't sure what had happened and resisted with the statement saying, "Let's wait a few more minutes, sweetheart. I need to take some rest." She replied in a hushed tone, "There's someone in the restroom reading a newspaper with no eyes." This frightened Henry and made it to the bus immediately, starting the engine and zooming off. "But Dad, I thought we were going to have some minutes rest. Why are we leaving now?" Jill had asked. "Your mom saw someone with no eyes reading the paper in the restroom," Henry replied to her. "What?" The kids responded simultaneously. At the not frequently used mansion building at 4:42 p.m., the Wilsons arrived at their destination. They felt some relief and thought they'd escape from whatever had shown up at the gas station while they were on wheels. Jill was so happy about being here, she could feel the air on the island, different from that of Princeburg and every other city she had been to. Robert was quick to make his way around the mansion with some belongings and a smartphone held firmly. Mary instructed everyone on what to do and shared portions of the room with the kids. She allocated a much spacious room for herself and her hubby. Jill was not interested in what Mary had to say. She went straight to her closet and became fascinated with the framed pictures she had seen around the room. Luxurious vases and king-size spacious room she had only got to see in the movies. Jill became attracted to a wooden carved box with special designs and was curious to know what was inside. She resisted at first and took some steps to observe other paintings in the room. As she had stepped away from the box, she heard a poking sound coming from the box. Jill was curious now and wanted to admire more and know what was inside the box. She drew the wooden box closer to herself and opened it. She saw some pieces of jewelry in it and a book that had a bolder written instruction stating, "Do not open." Jill felt no one was going to know if she opened it or not. She defied the instructions and opened the black hardcover book. It had drawings in it and inked written stories. The moment Jill opened the book, a black cloud arose from her back and penetrated her from behind without her knowledge. She was loving the stories from the book. Each happens in the stories. Jill was imagining it to be real and had imagined her family in the situation of these stories. Every imagination, Jill had a thick, dark cloud released from her into the thin air. "Let's go eat dinner, my little princess," Mary said, while standing at the door to Jill's room. Her mother's statement brought Jill back to reality and she responded, "As you wish, Your Highness." Mary gave a shocked look at the unusual form of a response she just heard from her daughter. They filled the dinner table with meals that complemented and matched the mansion they were in. "This was a big feast," Robert had said. "A big feast indeed," Zion replied, and the family burst into laughter. While eating, the giant pendulum clock at the main living room struck down, making it known it was 8 p.m. Immediately, the pendulum stopped. Jill got flashes of incidents she had imagined while reading the sacred wooden box book. Her first imagination, which was centered on the dinner, which was a sequel to the book. Zion had noticed liquid droplets from the chandelier light hanging over the dining table. Looking up and noticed a bird trapped in the fancy lights, and her blood was dripping on his meal this time. He looked back into his plate with the meal before him and saw a dead black bird with its feather in replace of its supposed meal. He screamed uncontrollably and fell from the chair at a shock. Jill gave a secret loving smile for what was happening. She had imagined it the way it was coming into reality. The rest of the family became confused about how the meal got replaced to be a dead bird. Henry ran towards Zion to calm him, but immediately Henry touched Zion. He looked into his eyes and he saw what was an enormous dragon next to him. This further made him panic and ran out of sight. While all this was happening, Jill was the only one sitting calmly, with no form of remorse. No one noticed this. The doorbell rang, and there was confusion about who it could be at that hour of night. The Wilsons were reluctant to answer as they weren't expecting anyone, and Vainsgate is a lonesome area with a few people around. Mary pleaded with Henry to check whoever it was and be the man of the house. Henry, with different confusing thoughts, approached the door but was shivering, and it was obvious. After asking who it was twice with no response, he opened the door with a deep sigh. Henry opened the door, accepting whatever his fate could be. He looked around but saw no one, relieved to some extent, and was about to close the door when he saw a human-like figure standing next to the space bus they'd driven from Princeburg to Vainsgate. Hurriedly slammed the giant door and walked backwards, not sure what to say or do. He told the remaining family members at the dining table that they'll be leaving for Princeburg tomorrow, as this was not the vacation anyone would wish for. Mary nodded to what he said in the form of acceptance. Robert was noticing how calm Jill was with all of this happening. The doorbell rang again, and this time, Henry told the family he saw a human-like figure in an overall position next to the space bus. He advised not to answer the door. Zion was still in a panic mood along the hallway. With all that happening to him, Jill stood up for her room and walked majestically along the hallway leading to her room. "My poor little princess," Mary had said when Jill stood up for her room. She didn't bargain for such a vacation. Jill went into her room and laid on the bed. This time again, the pendulum struck and the shivers went down the Wilsons as a loud sound scared them. Jill imagined another occurrence again. This time, it was an extreme imagination. Henry, Robert, and Mary were about to leave the dining room when the power supply went off for a few seconds. By the time the power supply was back, they saw Mary in the air with nothing holding her. Neither was she holding anything, but she couldn't talk. Robert screamed, "What is going on, Dad?" Henry, perplexed as his son, was peeing on himself. They heard a loud whisper. Henry and Robert stared at themselves and ran to wherever they perceived to. Robert ran towards his room and noticed Jill was lying on the bed. At first, he became scared, thinking she was dead or something. He walked towards her room and immediately tapped her, mentioning her name twice before she answered. Immediately, Jill answered. Mary gained her freedom and fell to the ground, which made her scream out of pain. Mary ran towards the hallway, where she saw Zion still in a panic mood, with his face buried in his thigh. "Let's go," she dragged her son. He stood up and followed her blindly with a blank mind. They ran towards the room that Mary had picked for herself and her hubby. Henry was in there and relieved to see Mary was okay and Zion getting himself through. He had an emotionless face. Jill and Robert stared at each other and he knew something wasn't right. He noticed a wooden box at the corner of the table, opened. He wasn't sure about Jill owning such a thing. As he walked towards the box, he noticed a hissing sound emanating from the box. He saw the book Jill had read with the bolder written instructions stating, "Do not open," which Jill defied. Robert was quick to remember that his late grandfather had told him something strange might occur in the mansion whenever it's left abandoned for long, and something worse could happen if anyone trespasses on the things that were restricted. This flashed through his memory, which made him more scared, and he wasn't sure if the book was one of the restricted items in the Wilson Heritage Mansion. Robert, still not sure about this thought and what action he should carry out, a scream emanating from his parents' room filled the mansion. It was Henry, who had seen a snake with 5 heads in the bathtub while trying to use the restroom. Every member of the Wilson family was in the hallway. Mary was contemplating if it was a good idea to head back to Princeburg the same night or wait till dawn. Jill was moving towards the kitchen. Robert, who had interest in where she was headed for, followed her without uttering a word. Jill was not in full control of herself. The dark cloud that had possessed her was controlling everything she did. Jill picked up a knife and was cutting the center of her palm when Robert walked in on her. Their eyes met, and it was not the normal eyes of his precious sister. The eyes he saw was red, like brimstone. At this point, he knew something was wrong, and this isn't the same Jill he knew. As the blood from the open cut from her palm touched the floor, the walls around the mansion talked and were out of control. The noise was unbearable for Mary. She lost her sanity and cried. Henry was trying to reach the local police on his mobile phone, but his phone was out of service. This had set more panic in his mind. Robert became upset with the noise. He picked up the chopping board from the kitchen to hit Jill. As he raised the object to hit his sister, Robert saw Jill in an infant form and became confused about it. He staggered out of the kitchen as he couldn't come to an understanding of what he had seen. Robert was at the corner next to the kitchen when his sister stepped out and was heading towards the hallway. He summoned the courage to get the creature who he thought was parading Jill and hit it so hard and probably tried to kill it. As he approached Jill, what he saw was a teenage girl approaching the hallway. As he came closer, she cried profusely. This led to Robert shouting his sister's name, Jill. As she looked back and their eyes met, what he saw on her face made him faint. Zion saw Robert lying on the floor, breathless at a slow pace, called for his parents, but it was only Henry, who was in his right mind, that answered. The duo, after several attempts, could get Robert back to a stable position. He told them what he had noticed, and they all concluded to tie down Jill till it was daybreak instead of killing her, as it was too extreme. The time was 2:15 a.m. They approached Jill with a well-calculated approach, got a hold of her, tied her down to the chair in her room. Robert returned the book inside the wooden box, and the rest of the family sat next to Jill until it was daybreak. They all agreed to return to Princeburg that morning. The Wilson family never enjoyed the summer they had envisioned. Do you like this video? Share it with your friends, and also subscribe to the channel.